The daily demands and dangers to firefighters around the globe are countless, but the leading cause of death for firefighters is not burns or smoke, it's heart attacks. In fact, firefighters are 300% more likely to die on the job from a heart attack than the rest of the population. In Georgia in 2006, so many died from heart attacks on the job in Gwinnett County, it became an epidemic that was broadcast across the local media. The story revolved around the local fire chief's cry for help. That grabbed the attention of nationally renowned genetics researcher Dr. Robert Sapurko and his team.
And he was complaining essentially that he was sick and tired of going to funerals for his firefighters because they didn't die in the fire. They didn't die doing things that most people would encounter. They died of a heart attack. And so he said, why are all my firefighters dying from a heart attack? Must be an answer for this. Who can help?
Dr. Sapurko had spent years developing advanced genetic tests for heart disease through the Berkeley Heart Lab in California. He applied those tests to assess 1 million genes in every single firefighter, pinpointed whether the first responder had the genetic markers for heart disease. It was the perfect way to determine why firefighters were dying from heart attacks at 3 times the normal rate.
And it's much more complicated than just what's your bad LDL cholesterol or what's your good HDL cholesterol. And we've done a series of what are called heart disease regression studies. So how can you make the heart disease actually go backwards and get better?
So in conjunction with St. Joseph's Hospital in Atlanta, doctors, researchers, and firefighters launched what would become a $1 million federally funded landmark study.
FEMA was interested in this for a number of reasons, but the most important reason is that in order to protect the public health and well-being, they have to protect the health of the firefighters. About 75% of them have their heart attack going to the fire, fighting the fire, or coming back from the fire. So if they're there to help you and save your life, but they have a heart attack while they're doing that, they can't help you.
The study tested 300 firefighters from Gwinnett County, one of the largest geographic and most populated areas in Georgia.
I've been with Gwinnett for 29 years, a little over 29 years now.
For 50-year-old firefighter Steve Brown, fitness was as much a part of his life as all his years with Gwinnett Fire.
I was always health conscious. I always wanted to be healthy, and stay in good shape.
And because his father had his first heart attack at 45, Steve knew he had to be extra diligent about his own health, for himself and for his daughters.
Well, the reason I did the study was because, I wanted the information. It was a great opportunity to just find out as much information as I could about my own health, not only for me, but to pass on to my kids. And if they were going to have any kind of problems in the future, then here's the blueprint right here.
He told me he was doing the study, and he told me when he got the test results back, he's so athletic, I can't believe that would happen to him. So.
After 6 Ironman competitions, 20 top-placing marathons, and dozens of triathlons, Steve was in the shape of his life. But no amount of physical training could prepare him or the researchers for what they'd found.
I was devastated, to say the least.
Cardiovascular nurse Brenda Garrett-Sapurko was in charge of notifying those firefighters most at risk over the phone immediately.
So when I got his results back, it was like, I just looked at it and paused. I thought, I got to wait for the right time to call him, this is going to take a little while. So Steve was one of those that when I called, I said, hey, this is Brendan. He goes, I said, yeah, well, let's chat.
I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
Steve had triple vessel heart disease. He was in the high-risk category and was the perfect example of nature trumping nurture. Steve wasn't alone. The study found that more than 1/3 of the 300 firefighters studied had undiagnosed heart disease.
Yeah, I heard of several guys that had some problems on the test, whether it was calcium or high blood pressure or whatever.
In addition to identifying those at risk, the study also proved that environmental factors of the job, such as stress and psychological pressures, interacted with the gene for heart disease and became a trigger for heart attacks.
We were quite surprised by a number of things in this study. First of all the firefighters look great. They're in terrific shape. They carry heavy loads. They carry 100 pounds of equipment going into these burning buildings. You'd look at them and say, wow, This guy's the epitome of a good-looking male.
Get those topped off. When I got the pack fixed, I got 2 other stations I got to go to after I leave. It's just a matter of regrouping and figuring out where to go from now, where to go from this point. You know, whereas if I didn't have this information, I'd be rocking along not knowing anything about it, and till it's, you know, too late or something happens.
Philip, you ready?
Initial shock, surprise, but thereafter it became a very motivating factor.
Dr. Basil Margolis, prevention expert at St. Joseph's, took the reins of the study and the treatment of the diagnosed responders.
The good news side is that we're picking it up way ahead of time, and so you can turn things around and say, look, we've picked up some risk factors, but if you act on these now, we can prevent heart disease down the road.
All of the firefighters with poor results were immediately put into a personalized cardiac treatment program at St. Joseph's that included everything from diet and exercise to interventions and even surgeries.
I've changed my eating habits, and I'm being more active and working out again. So.
And the firefighters, physicians, and researchers began spreading the word about the findings. Steve Brown wrote a letter to encourage more of his colleagues to get a Berkeley test.
We treat people every day. We tell them to go to the hospital and find out what's going on with their health, so take our own advice. It would be very sad to spend your whole life working here, and when it's time to retire, your health is so bad that you can't enjoy it. Some of these guys have gotten me through some of the hardest times in my life, and I would just hate for something to happen to somebody that I care that much about.
So he recently had his own daughters tested as well.
I've told people at work after he got his test results back, I hope that he does something to control this, because he is our rock, and I would encourage anybody to do this study, like absolutely anybody, because it's losing somebody too early. It's just not worth it when you can do things to prevent it. It's just senseless. It's absolutely senseless.